Welcome to the Unbroken Driver channel. I am Steven. We are going to be talking about a post, or actually a comment that was made by Edgar Alvarez Valles. He says, "Hi bro, can you help me? I drive for Lyft only, new in this small business, driving a Kia 2015 gas, but I'm not sure which Kia he has." He also says, "What's a garbage trip? If you drive 2015 Kia, what's trash trip for you? Thank you." So basically, the way that you calculate this normally is going to be based off of how much money you are going to make when you use your car and how much you're going to be spending per mile for giving trips. So for example, let's say I calculate out in my Tesla that I can do a mile for 7 cents. So a mile is costing me 7 cents. So basically anything above 7 cents is a profit, right? Ideally, I would want to make double that or triple that as much as I possibly can. Anything higher than that or a multiple of that is excellent, and I'm in the green because I know that my mile number is 7 cents. There's other factors that you can take into account. So for example, if I am living in an apartment and I need to pay my rent, if I am buying my car and I need to pay my car notes, insurance, there's so many other factors besides just how much money you're making per mile in fuel, but how much money you need to make overall in order to cover all of your bills and expenses. Okay. So the first thing that I would do in his situation is write down how much my rent is, write down how much my rent, insurance, if I have the car note, a car note. Also write down all the other expenses that you have to pay. Whatever bills that you pay on a monthly basis, write them all down on a sheet of paper, because I'm assuming that rideshare is the only source of income that you have. So it's important. If this is your only source of income, you need to find out how much you need to make by the end of the month to pay all of your bills, or to be prepared to pay all your bills for the next month. So when it comes to Lyft, if we're just looking purely at the rides, not taking into consideration his own personal situation, right? Whatever his expenses are, including his vehicle and everything like that. If we're not taking into consideration his own experiences, and we're just looking at the types of rides that you can expect depending on your market, that's another thing. I don't know what your market is. So I don't know if you're driving in LA or somewhere else. So for myself, I know that rides can range usually somewhere between $15 and $20 on average. I normally see somewhere between $15 and $18 per hour rate on the rides coming from Lyft right now, unless there's a surge or bonus zone. Bonus zones. Normally the rates without the bonuses and the bonus zones is going to be somewhere between $15 and $18. Sometimes it'll spike up into the 20s. I've seen sometimes it spike up into the 30s, but it's pretty rare, and I wouldn't bank on that for what I can make in my daily income. Now there's different ways that you can go about this to make more money. For example, there's an app called Sketty, which allows you to plan your day out based off of the scheduled rides that are available on Lyft. And there's a lot of people that don't take advantage of scheduled rides, but scheduled rides, I believe, sometimes pay a lot more per hour. And I need to analyze this to be sure, but I'm pretty confident it pays more per hour. You need to be online usually, I believe, in half an hour or so before the ride even starts, and you can read this all when you look at the scheduled rides. But Sketty takes advantage of the scheduled rides and plans out your day for you. Now it's a paid service. You pay for the credits in order to get these rides, but the scheduled rides that you normally wouldn't get on your listing or somebody else would take, now you get access to them, or you have access, but you get without you having to manually select these pre-scheduled rides, right? without you having to go through the list of all the scheduled rides and see which ones are going to work for you and see what area that they're in and whether or not you want to drive that far to go pick them up, you know, and see whether or not you're going to be losing money by going to take these rides. Sketty will pick rides in different spots that coincide with where you're going to be dropping off a client. So in some cases, especially way back when I first started using it, it would plan out almost my entire day and make it where I could have a $250 to $300 day. So it's a good tool to use. So I would definitely recommend Sketty and then also Para. You would want to use Para because it would allow you to not only see a graphical, like a map that shows where you're going to be picking up the client and where you're going to be dropping them off. It also shows clearly the rating of the person that you're going to be picking up. And then it'll tell you the per hour and per mile rate. So you can either calculate per mile or you can calculate per hour. I personally don't calculate per mile because time is the biggest factor for rides for me when I'm on the road, because I could get a mile trip that takes half an hour to an hour. That's a little bit extreme, but half an hour wouldn't be surprising in some situations. The 405 freeway, if you're familiar with the Los Angeles area and rush hour traffic, it's bad. There's accidents, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, a normal trip that should take you 15 minutes can turn into an hour to an hour and a half. So to go through and just make sure I covered all the questions that he has, like, how can you tell whether or not a ride is garbage? Well, normally I don't want to, it's hard to, so I don't want to compare it to Uber, because with Uber, I don't take rides unless it's at a $30 an hour rate per ride. It doesn't mean I'm making $30 an hour, but at least the rate, when I compare how much I'm making versus how much time I'm going to be on the road, has to equal $30 an hour plus. So I don't want to compare it to Uber in that way, because Uber is going to make you more money, and I'm taking it. You're asking me about Lyft because for some reason you can only drive Lyft. I would like to solve that problem. There's a way around that. Maybe the rental that you have is for Lyft, maybe, and you can check in and see if you can get a rental from Uber instead, because you will make more money if you have the Uber rental over the Lyft rental, at least in the LA area. Again, I don't know your market. The question doesn't say it, but in my market, usually Lyft stays around somewhere between $15 and $20 an hour rate. With Para, you'll be able to tell which rides are cheaper and which rides are more expensive or more valuable as far as the dollar amount. And then if there's high demand, then I would stick to the rides that are $17 an hour plus. If it's lower demand, I just would try to make sure that I don't take rides that are less than $10, because it's just a waste of time. You're sitting around waiting to pick clients up. It doesn't work well. You're going to eat up more of your time than you expect as you keep taking the short rides. And a lot of the times the bonuses and whatnot aren't worth it. So it's not worth taking these short trips and waiting for people that take 5 minutes to get to your car and take a couple of minutes to get out of your car. It's not worth it. I'd rather take longer trips that are going to pay me $10, $15, $20, $30, you know, and then move on to the next ride, instead of taking these short trips that might be a couple of miles, but the person's not ready to get in your car. You don't know. Now that gives you more opportunity for tips. You know, if you're getting tips regularly, if your area is not really paying out tips, then I mean, and it's all a wild card. You might get a client that wants to pay a tip, you might not. So I wouldn't even count that in your calculation, really. You can count it at the end when you're calculating your week, you know, how much money you're making per week. But $15 an hour is okay, because sometimes rides can come in for much less, so you want to avoid those, and Para is going to show you those rides that are paying you much less than $15 an hour. Now, if your market allows for you to do, like, for example, if your market has long roads that take you take you down, miles and miles of road, then maybe you want to calculate your income based off of mileage. In my market, yes, LA is big, but the biggest problem in most cases is you're driving in really tight cities where there's a bunch of lights, and some of these lights take forever, so it's more time consuming than it is distance related, right? So I'm gonna measure my income based off of how much time I expect to drive from point A to point B. And also the Para application measures the time in a different way, or measures the route in a different way than, let's say, Uber or Lyft. So that'll give you a better idea of how much you're going to be, how much time you're actually going to be spending on the road in comparison to however Uber or Lyft analyzes it. So those are just a few points that I would take into consideration. First, what's your market? Second, which Kia do you have? And you can easily Google how much so for example, I Googled and found, like, for example, the Kia Soul, because I don't know which one you have. It has up to 24-hour, and this is the 2015, because you did say 2015. It has 24 miles per gallon on the street and 30 miles per gallon highway. So that's not terrible. My car, which I used to have an Infiniti G37, was like 18 miles per gallon street and like 28 maybe miles per gallon on the freeway. So you can make money with that car. It's not garbage because it's gas. You can make money with that car, and there's some advantages to having a gas vehicle. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure if this is a rental or your own personal vehicle. If it's a rental, then you take into account how much the rental cost is. If it's something that you own and you don't have to make a payment on it, that's great. You're in a great spot. I wish I was in your position with a paid off vehicle, able to make profit. So your expenses, if this is your only source of income, look at your expenses overall. How much do you pay in rent? How much do you pay in a mortgage? How much are you paying on insurance? How much are you paying on your car if you have a car payment? And then whatever other bills you have, then you take all that and you divide it. I would say, so you can divide it over 30 days to get an idea of how much you need to make per day. And then you can start subtracting days if you want to. So you could subtract all the weekends. You could look at it based off of a 20-day month if you prefer. So let's say that you only have 20 working days in the month. So you divide all of your expenses off of that 20 days to find out how much you need to make per day in order to sustain to pay off all your bills. And obviously you want to make, at least I would want to make a little bit of extra money for stuff that I want to buy, outside of my expenses. Oh, don't forget to include food and fuel and everything in your calculations. So, and whatever other expenses you can think of that are regularly reoccurring bills. Also, you want to set aside some money if you don't own if you own the vehicle. Set aside money for maintenance. So if you need to do brakes, if you need to replace rotors, windshield wipers, if you're getting the car cleaned, those expenses add up, and having money to the side is important. Before you just start spending whatever extra money that you make, put a portion of that to the side so that it's better to have money in the bank and ready to go rather than being stuck and then having to hustle up and work extra hours in order to be able to take care of a problem that pops up. Just something, it's much better to have the hassle of pulling the money from your savings than not having the money at all, and now you got to use credit or something in order to make the payments. I'm going to go through the rest of my comments. I really suggest anybody who's liking my videos, go ahead and leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, let me know what you're driving. Do you know your numbers? Tell me if you know your numbers and you've actually taken the time to analyze, not just driving blindly, but seeing whether or not you're driving for free, because there are people that drive for free, and I don't want to be one of them.